Welcome back to the Breaking Indie Studio. We are here to introduce another amazing interview that we shot at the Santa Fe Film Festival. This one was with the director of a film called American Underdog. He has a very interesting story. He came as a locations manager at first, a location scout, all the way up to a writer and director of his first feature film. This is Gustavo Martin, a Peruvian filmmaker, and we had a really cool conversation talking both in his journey from location scout to director, but also in casting Danny Trejo in basically his first major film. Not Danny Trejo's, but Gustavo's, obviously.
I think Danny's got a pretty long resume.
In Gustavo's first major film, he cast Danny Trejo, so we talk about that. So check it out. This is an awesome interview.
It's a program for filmmakers, by filmmakers. It's the Breaking Indie Podcast.
Hey guys, we're here, another awesome episode of Breaking Indie, where we talk about all things film and independent filmmaking. We are here at the Santa Fe Film Festival, and we have with us the director of American Underdog. So excited. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you?
Yeah, I mean, my full name is Gustavo Martin Benitez Galvez. I have to cut that in half to fit in a call sheet sometimes. You know, I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I've been there for, close to 13 years now. And I've been working as, back and forth between shooting my own stuff and also working as a location scout and location manager. That's what pays the bills. But, my passion is in writing and directing, and with this feature, American Underdog is, it gave me the chance to direct that feature.
Oh, that's awesome.
Awesome.
And but every time, and I've done like 10 or so short films. Not all of them deserve to be seen. A lot of them were just practice. But at some point, I connected with a producer, Naveen Chadapuram, who said, "Hey, I've got a script for you." And we connected because he had seen a short film of mine, and he was very impressed. Especially with what I did with the budget involved. I had shot a short film for $1,500.
Oh, wow.
And so he actually took me up to Canada with him to be a producer on his film, The Last Victim. And, after that, he showed me a script, and the script was called American Underdog. And it was a script that Vishy Ayyar had started up. It was his project. And both Naveen and Vish asked if I'd be curious about, directing this project. So I read the script. And it was interesting because the story is, it's a redemption story of about an MMA fighter, And I'm not a huge sports guy. I mean, like, my favorite sport is chess, So but what I do appreciate about MMA is just the skill and the discipline it takes for one to get there. And I liken that to, a lot of other things. Filmmaking takes discipline. So I definitely had to find my way in, and I did. I've been dancing Lindy Hop for 10 years, so I do have background as a dancer as well. And, that is also something that takes a lot of skill, a lot of physicality. You have to diet sometimes for it, though I've never done a competition. But, once I found my connection to the material, it was a go. And then, I was very grateful that Vishy encouraged me to kind of make the story my own. So we literally changed like 99% of the original script. I think the script that was presented to me at first was a little bit more action driven. It played a little bit, like very, very mainstream, I believe. And I'm kind of more in the indie, sometimes art house realm with my type of filmmaking, and I pitched a story that was basically, a character-based story, and it focused on the character's journey of redemption. And and he liked it very much, and he encouraged me to go through with it, and we did. And this is, I made it into something a little bit more like Rocky, a little bit more like The Wrestler, just something very like character based, I have a writing partner. His name is Matt Masha, and just like we work remotely, me and him. He lives in Cleveland, I live in Chicago, and we toss the script back and forth.
Where did you guys shoot it?
What's up?
Where did you guys shoot it?
We filmed in Chicago. We filmed like 90% of it in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but it's certainly been a journey. We had the script more or less ready for years, and then it wasn't until Danny Trejo got involved that really got like gears turning.
Usually how it goes.
So you guys shot this in your hometown where you live. That must have been kind of
Yeah, it was interesting because the original idea was to film in New York, and I went out there to scout, and as soon as I came back, it just kind of became obvious, like you should shoot where you know.
Which I gotta ask then, with your background in locations, how does that background help inform you as a director? Like when you do those, like I imagine you kind of come with a certain kind of eye for it. Do you feel like that gave you an advantage when you were picking the place to shoot?
Absolutely. As a location scout, you kind of, it's an interesting job because you have to sometimes sell a location. I mean, like you read a script,
Correct.
The location manager tells you what to scout for, and then when you take photos, what you have in mind is, I need to shoot this so that the director understands how this location can work for his shots. And I felt that was a really great skill for me to develop because it was very much tied in with my directing skill sets. Because I am, when I land on a location and I'm taking photos, I'm taking them for the director, And in preparation for this film, I had like a Rolodex of locations that I already had. So me and I had some location colleagues, and we all just started scouting, and we just pulled up a bunch of locations. And, I think we wound up saving the production a lot of money, whereas, any other film would have had to reach out to a locations team, but like they were like my people, it was just my co-producers, Mark Leja, Maya Mimicevic, both of them have worked with me in locations before, and I knew instantly when we went out of the gate to start making this, like we were all over it, just finding locations and digging them up. We pulled the locations pretty quickly.
Yeah, I mean, getting locations is one of the biggest parts of any shoot, especially for independent filmmaking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's where, in many cases, in the early stages, I mean, that's where a lot of your money gets spent.
Absolutely.
So to have that, I mean, also, I feel like it's almost a luxury to have that skill because many directors see the photos.
Yeah.
But I know personally, like, you wish you could be on the location.
Right. Yeah.
And so as soon as the shoot is coming, on the day you're already ready to go.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have storyboards, but you know exactly what this space is like.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it goes back to like how Spielberg says he likes to arrive on set early just to get a feel for it and to just know what is what and where he's gonna. And he needs to do that alone, which I can totally relate to that.
Right.
Yeah.
This is my space.
Absolutely.
But that's awesome though. I mean, not to necessarily say you quote unquote started as a location scout, but doing both simultaneously. Directing doesn't necessarily have as clear of a career trajectory. I mean, everybody can come from different elements of the filmmaking process.
Right.
So, I mean, I say it's always like an amazing, invaluable experience when you have some level of knowledge of being on set. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about, speaking of starting as a location manager or whatnot, talk to me a little bit about like the early stages for you. Like when you knew this is what you wanted to do, what prompted you, where did you go, how did you really hit the ground running in a sense?
Yeah, like inspiration as a child, or are you talking about
a little bit, maybe that too, but basically right before you really just started to get work? Like what prompted your just, send off, if you will?
Oh man, I think that it all happened within a couple of years between the age of 13 and 17. And within those 3 or 4 years, I watched 3 films. It was Evil Dead, Clerks, and El Mariachi. And those 3
Way to bring it full circle.
Yeah.
I know. Those 3 films were by far my biggest inspiration to make movies, because they actually, while I always loved movies, those films gave me the realization that I could make them, because all those filmmakers made them very cheaply. So
Right.
that was my way in. If I wasn't, because I was very, as like a Latino immigrant, I have no connections here in the film industry, and but all of those directors were also very they were all self-starters, and so I figured that if I had any sort of path existed for me, it was going to be in the form of making it on my own, very cheaply.
Yeah, well, we can relate to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, we can relate to that. I'm sure many people watching.
As I'm sure most of us can, right?
Yeah. So that's where my start was. A lot of it was just inspiration, and my first set of movies I don't think were of high quality, but it was certainly very valuable to just get a lot of practice in when I was very young.
That's where we start, right?
Yeah.
So we are lucky enough to have some of your cast as well. So if you don't mind, while they're not in the room,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I would love to just kind of get your point of view as the director, kind of what your casting process was like, or maybe, how did you guys end up going about things? How'd you get Danny or like any of that stuff? Could you shed some light?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the case of Vishy, the project was started by him.
Right.
And so it was his world. I was invited to be a part of his world and shape it. So he was there from the start, But the benefit of that is that you kind of get to mold even the script, like even the way he talks. You kind of, write that as dialogue. So that was just something that was inherent to the film. And, the benefit of having an actor, that for so long is that you just kind of pick up how he talks, how he moves, how he works, his process. And, we really did kind of, our workflow with him was based around just like our personal kind of relationship.
Which is the best, honestly.
Yeah. And I kind of saw him as more than an actor. He was generating a lot of ideas. He would check off on ideas. He would suggest ideas. So I didn't, so it was then a process of me focusing more on the rest of the cast,
Right.
Yeah. And then I would say, how Danny came about, I was more or less given like a wish list, of people. And, and they're like, who do you want? I'm like, Danny Trejo, Of course. I mean, there were a couple other choices that were in different directions, but at some point somebody was like,
he was at the top of the list.
Well, yeah, when there was, he was one of the people who was on top of the list. And then when we were thinking like, well, it should be a person of color, he was the top of my list.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, it was as simple as an offer was sent to him and he was interested,
Cool.
And it is to the credit of our producer, Christy, who was just, I think her, because she comes from a talent management experience, that's her background, she just kind of has a way of reading agents, reading people, just kind of knowing when to strike. And we had a general time frame in which, we were making offers, but she just kind of like zoned in and like, that's when we're asking him. And then he said yes, and then the movie started going. And then yeah, like suddenly everybody was interested in working on it.
I'm sure.
I mean, that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's how Danny came about, and then that started kind of like this the domino effect, Because it's like, okay, now that we have Danny, let's look at Veronica Falcón.
Sure.
And because then potentially I had two Mexican actors on my roster. So while the film was definitely at first coming from a very strong Indian kind of background, because of me and the talent that I was looking at, we began to have this kind of beautiful Indian Latino kind of mix.
Cool. Yeah, that is something I noticed.
Yeah.
Looking up just at the IMDb, looking at the cast and looking at the diversity in it, it was really cool.
And then first Danny, when I met up with him, he said that one of the reasons he picked the project was because he wanted to support a young Latino filmmaker. And then when I talked to Veronica, she said, well, I want to support a young Latino filmmaker, and then I've never worked with Danny, so I signed on immediately. So it was absolutely like a domino effect of people just wanting to work with each other.
Cool.
And
is this the your guys' world premiere? Or
this is the world
premiered
premiere
already,
of the
right?
movie.
Yeah. So exciting.
Yeah.
So excited to have you guys doing this here.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
fantastic.
No, we're happy to be here. It's a cool locale.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Gets me out of Chicago.
Well, what do you think is your next step past this?
The next step?
Yeah.
I'm actually for the movie or for myself?
No, for your personal career.
I'm doing two things right now. The process is I kind of have like a two-pronged approach right now. I am both looking for my next script on one hand, and then on the other hand, I have a short script that I wrote a couple years ago that won top 8 at Scriptapalooza.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
And now that my journey with Underdog is concluding, that's the movie I want to pursue. It's just a short film, but it's just something that's very much, very dear to my heart. It's about like a Peruvian immigrant trying to balance his passion with his job in Chicago. And while I've just made a feature, and certainly that's the next natural step is to make another feature.
Right.
I see a lot of value in doing short films because it's a place to kind of reset yourself a little bit, and then also it's still a way to experiment a certain direction.
Yeah, I love that.
And I see a lot of possibilities. It's a kind of short film that I think I can get into the Cannes Film Festival or South by Southwest.
Sure,
cool.
I just think that I just have this feeling in me. I have to make this.
Yeah,
amazing. I mean, that's what we want. That's what we need, and that's the compass that we need to follow as filmmakers, really. Yeah. Especially, like you're saying, I could make another feature, but this story needs to be told. And short films I agree, are almost like a sandbox in a way. It's much more on a micro scale, so you don't have to worry as much about these larger issues.
And it's a nice way to just kind of, it's a nice way to just kind of. It's like a breath of fresh air to because I've been working on this movie for 4 years,
right?
And so I'm ripe to just start on the next project.
Cool. Yeah.
And while I find this next perfect script for me, it's nice to also just be, it gives me a chance to continue the flow, because. The thing about directing is that you only get to direct a small percentage of your time. Most of the time you're casting, you're rehearsing, you're writing, you're editing, but a very small percentage of your time is actually dedicated towards actually directing actors on set.
Yeah.
So the more I can do to keep myself practiced in between features, the better.
Wonderfully said.
Well,
great advice.
We are so honored to have you here.
Yeah.
We are going to be at your premiere tonight. So excited about this. And guys, American Underdog, please check it out. And thank you again so much.
Thank you so
Thanks
much
so
for
much.
your time, man.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Again, this is the Breaking Indie podcast. You know all the things, the likes, the subscribes, whatever, all that shit. More importantly, if you learned something, talk about it. Leave it in the comments below, or maybe you can share with us some of the things you'd like to learn more about, because we want to conduct more of these interviews, and we can't do it without your support.
Or just troll us. I mean, you can just leave hateful comments.
Yeah, we'll delete them, but I'll read them.
No, we won't.
We'll see.
Well, it depends on how hateful they are. But.
All right, well, try it out. Let's see where we go.